What is up, everybody? Welcome back to an all-new episode of the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. It is Justis Mosqueda Tuesday. You can find him on Twitter at JUMOSQ. Justis, no victory to talk about this week, but a ton to get into nonetheless. Before we get there, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. I can't complain. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Crazy week. I think going into the bye week. And then just obviously a lot of stuff going on in general in the world this week, but we'll get through all of that, I am sure. And this is going to be a very fun discussion of breaking down what went wrong in Green Bay and trying to figure out all of those problems. So as I am always apt to do when you are on, I will give you the floor to begin with, and we can start by discussing anything that is on your mind. So Justis, have at it.
So I think the biggest thing from today, and I don't know if you've hit on it already, but the press conference with LaFleur, where he was talking about Musgrave's injury.
Yep.
I think that's probably the biggest thing, honestly, to come out of this whole past week. So Musgrave's in the scooter, which is not what you would think of a guy who went on IR a couple of weeks ago. And, I think that there was some hopeful expectation that people did the math as soon as he went on IR and was like, okay, after the bye against the Bears, we can have Musgrave back. But if he's still in the scooter, I mean, it's probably going to be a little while longer. I ended up looking at the numbers. So Green Bay last year was third in multiple tight end sets, right? They haven't been this year, in part because, Musgrave got banged up and stuff like that. And then also the Jaden Reed breakout. And if Jaden Reed is playing in the slot, you got to have three guys out there, right? So that's been interesting. Their play rate. So tight end, the non-Tucker Kraft tight ends have been on the field 12.5% of the time when Musgrave is in the lineup. And when Musgrave's out of the lineup, that drops down to 7.8%. So that drops about 2/5 of the time that those backup tight ends would have been on the field. So the Packers offense has adjusted to the Musgrave injury. And the adjustment is we're just going to play the backup tight ends less. And now, you're seeing Ben Sims play about like 20 snaps per game as a tight end. That's been basically his average the last like 5 weeks or whatever. But they haven't really gotten Fitzpatrick any snaps. I think he played 7 total so far for the Packers. And then obviously, you have I'm spacing on his name, the fullback that we had, Andrew Beck. So he had his 3 call-ups used, and then, the Packers, I guess, don't view him as a 53-man roster guy, so they just let him go. So, we're one injury away from Ben Sims essentially playing full-time with some figuring out what the heck a John Fitzpatrick is. I don't think anyone knows. I can go back to my eval on him with Georgia because I did watch that offense a lot. He's a good blocking tight end, and that's kind of the only role that he really fits in. You're not going to try to feed him the ball. But it's kind of crazy how many snaps Kraft is playing too. I mean, he played 100% of the snaps this past game. I looked it up. He has played 116 total snaps on offense, and he's only been on the bench for 85. He's the most played player besides every healthy, season-long healthy offensive lineman. He is just Iron Manning it out there, and I guess that's just going to be the plan until Musgrave comes back, whenever that is. I mean, they were saying it's hopeful that he'll come back by the end of the regular season, and that is very different than what I expected, which was basically, him coming back for the Bears game. So that's the biggest adjustment for me.
Yeah, it's a big injury. And I think when you take him out of the lineup, like you said, it certainly limits your 2 tight end sets. And I think the bigger thing, as you mentioned, is it really hurts you if anything should happen to Tucker Kraft at any moment. And they are using him a ton. So hopefully the bye week for Kraft gets him, up to speed. He's been wearing the red jersey in practice. They probably do want to protect him at all costs at this point. I went back and I watched Fitzpatrick when they signed him. And it was sort of the opposite reaction that I had to when they signed Chris Brooks, where like I saw Chris Brooks and went and watched his tape. I'm like, wow, all right, there's like something here. Like I think they can legitimately use this guy, Fitzpatrick. I'm just like, not sure I see it. And I do think there's a blocking guy, like a player there that can, maybe help out here and there. But like, I think he's kind of more of that like 10, 12 a snap game guy at best that you want on the field and not anything more dynamic than that. And I'm actually a little bit, I don't want to say bummed or like underwhelmed or anything, but I did think Ben Sims was going to be able to step into that number 2 role maybe a little bit more than what he has been so far and maybe just make a few more plays. But that has really not been the case either. He's okay as a blocker. He had a nice block this past week on the big run, but like overall, I just kind of wanted a little bit more there, and it hasn't been the case. So I think Tucker Kraft's spot definitely becomes a lot more important, that you just cannot have him go out, because otherwise
Yeah.
you're going in a situation where you just don't have a number 1 tight end.
Yeah, because even though the Packers are going to be basically living in 11 personnel, right? If they're down a receiver, you at least have a receiver who can kind of backfill in that type of position, right? Where tight end, it's like, all right, are we going to play Ben Sims every down? Is it going to be 50-50 him and Fitzpatrick? And Fitzpatrick, is not going to be really a passing game contributor at the very least. Like
Right.
a lot of problematic things start to pop up in that type of situation. I think tight end is something to look out for. Now, mind you, hopefully we don't jinx this, because last week we brought up a name, Chris Russell, and then immediately Chris
He
Russell
gets
was off the
released.
team. So hopefully nothing happens to the tight ends over this bye week.
No, hopefully not. They cannot withstand any sort of injury there. So they're going to all need to stay healthy in some capacity. I'm interested to see just like what the timeline ends up for Musgrave, and hopefully he can be somebody they get back at the end of the year and can be a boost to this offense if and when they need that. But that is a bummer, because I think we saw a big year 2 jump for Tucker Kraft. I think we were hoping for something similar out of Musgrave. I don't know how much he was having, lingering ankle injuries prior to him actually not playing anymore.
I mean,
But
they thought that he was going to play, right? That was the
mhm.
whole part of it. Is they were getting ready pregame, and they were like, "Yep, you're going to be able to go." Oh, well, nope. This is a way bigger injury than we thought. We got to call up Beck and all that stuff. So um, that's one reason why I would have thought, you know, this would have been. I guess I would have thought if you were going to have a surgery, you would have had it sooner, so he no longer would have been in the scooter, right?
Yeah.
And then I also wouldn't have thought it was a serious enough injury for him to get surgery, because they thought they were going to play him through the injury basically before they realized how serious it was. So I'm kind of double surprised on that when, the report came out today that, he's on a scooter in the locker room and all this stuff. And Matt confirmed that he had actually had surgery. So big
Yeah.
adjustment.
Definitely a change in direction there. And we'll talk about the trade deadline before we get out of here. I'm wondering if that could change anything at the tight end position. I don't think so, but it's a little bit more interesting with that sort of update with Musgrave. Let's go to the big topic that everyone seemingly wants to discuss, and that's Jordan Love and his more recent propensity to throw some interceptions and some poor passes and put it into harm's way. Where are you at now that we're kind of reaching this midway point through the season? I know Jordan hasn't played every game. I know he's been banged up, but where do you sort of come down on the issues with Jordan and putting it in harm's way?
I mean, it's not good. I don't
No.
I don't know what I don't know what people want to say. Like, I know Matt was saying, it's annoying answering these questions. Well, the guy's leading the NFL in interceptions, and Geno Smith is the only guy with as many as him. And Geno Smith has like 100 plus more attempts than Love does, because Love's been out. He missed 2.5 games basically, right? So it's not great. I do think that like we're towing this weird line where it's like people want to be in the pro or anti Love camp, and whatever your view on this is, people want to lump you in on one side. I think it's perfectly fine with being like, yeah, Jordan's obviously the franchise quarterback. Hopefully he's going to get in a groove, down the stretch of the season. It's been a weird year, certainly for the Packers so far this year. But we can also admit that like we thought it was going to be better, right? I mean, I don't
Yeah.
think anyone thought it was expecting every single half of the season was going to look like the second half of 2023. But if you would have asked me, how does the start of 2024 go? I probably wouldn't have said, 10 picks at the start of the year.
I would very much agree. I more agree with it being a weird year so far, especially for Jordan. I kind of just want to see what the second half of this year looks like. I'm not really ready to go in any one direction, one way or the other, to say like, all right, there's a serious problem here, or I'm not willing, just
Mhm.
say like, yep, everything's clearly going to be
Especially this
fine.
this past one, like the other ones, a lot of times he's pushing the ball down the field and stuff, and it's just like he's gonna figure out which ones he can actually attempt or not, right? And that's something, the guy hasn't played a lot of live action football games in the past couple seasons. I know he did last year, but like he's still figuring out that calibration. This past one was just, it was a weird pick, man. I mean, it was made behind the line of scrimmage, and it was obviously in a bad spot, right? Giving up a pick six with, you know, in a 2-minute drill, basically. Definitely not what you want to see, right? Pretty horrible result, because I don't, even if the Lions get the ball back, I don't think that they're in an advantageous spot to be able to score, especially not a touchdown at that point. So yeah, I mean, it's a big momentum swing. Packers never cut that 2-score lead for the remainder of the game, but like we're talking about an interception on a check down, and we have to make, you know, broad stroke you know, claims on the future of this quarterback based off of that. Like, no, like he's thrown too many picks. That's fine. Let's tune those down. But as far as overreacting to that one play, I mean, it's a kick in the nuts, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, he's trying to check it down. It's a bad read. It's a bad decision. Even a completion is probably a bad decision in that situation, because you're going to get tackled and the clock is going to run. Like, even that's probably not the
just
great.
Dirt that thing. Just go straight Brady. Throw it at our offensive lineman's ankle. They're
Yeah.
never going to call it grounding. So.
Yeah, just do something, and that, or just chuck it out of bounds. He's out of the pocket by that situation. So I'm with you. Not really willing to make any sort of extreme judgments one way or the other. Still excited about Jordan and what he's going to be for this team moving forward, but he clearly needs to clean up some of the poor decision making and mistakes. And I think that's kind of all there is. And let's see how he handles it in the second of the season. I also don't know, like, I don't know if he's in like there's a pain situation too, or he's like kind of afraid to take some sacks or hits because he's worried that it's going to like re-aggravate it or just give him some. I'm not saying that, again, that as an excuse in any way, but it just does feel like there's a little bit more panic at the point of attack when he's starting to get pressured, where it's like, gah, and like that, which is okay still, but then just do that and get it out of bounds rather than towards anything where there's a bunch of players that something catastrophic could happen like that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it might have been the first time that he went down to the ground in the game was when he came up gimpy, and then we're like, oh man, is Malik going to come in? They start showing the third quarter, and Malik's warming up on the sideline. You're like, oh, Malik is coming in the second half again. We've seen this one before. And then it's just Love the rest of the game. You're like, okay, I guess. I mean, LaFleur said today that, you know, he trusted his medical staff enough, and they cleared Love, and Love wanted to play and all that stuff. So, yeah, who knows what that situation is like? I mean, when you look up groin injuries and everything, like, unless you're having surgery, like, the best thing is rest. And, you know, he's about to have, 13 days in between games. So hopefully that'll help. LaFleur also said that when Love was limited on Thursday, he basically just did indie work, right? He only had like 1 day of actual practice with the team. So Malik had taken team snaps on Thursday, and I thought that was interesting. So, yeah, I mean, I can only imagine that rest is going to help.
I think the rest is going to help. Hopefully, you can get back to practicing a little bit more full through the course of the week. I think that would help. And hopefully some of those receivers too, they just need to get in some sort of rhythm. And I know Chicago's defense is really, really tough. So that first game back is not exactly going to be a cakewalk, but I do think they've got to figure out something just to kind of get this offense back on track. And hopefully he can go under center. Matt also mentioned that they did more pistol and shotgun stuff because of, Love's injury situation. So.
With the backup center, doesn't always go perfect. Yeah.
No, it very much did not. I thought at some point they were going to put Monk in or move Sean Ryan over and switch Ryan and Jenkins just to do something different, but that clearly...
I mean, like, two of them were on the same drive, right? Like,
yeah.
It was just back to back in the red zone. So, yeah, I mean, I know Brady on the broadcast, I don't know if you saw the broadcast, but Brady was going off about, the snaps on his left leg. Like, he can't go down with that. I'm like, look, I'm not as worried about that. Like, the ball, one, it's coming off target, and then the thing is sputtering. I mean, there were a couple times on those Jenkins snaps where it's just like, just dead snap it, right? Just have no spin on it at that point. Just float it back there like those academy teams do when they're in the pistol and the shotgun. Like, I don't know.
We were this close to doing the swinging gate where you just like lining up and just pitching it back that way. No, that was just another one of those like mind numbing things of like, of course that will also go wrong. Where like now Jenkins can't get it back to Love, and especially when he doesn't have the mobility that he normally would either. It was just like, what? Come on. Like we even have to go through this and this one. It's just, that was that sort of game. I've talked to Nagler about this a little bit. I talked the other night with the guys we had on the live show as well. I'm struggling, Justis, on this one to do a great job of evaluating the defensive performance. when the game was in the balance, they immediately drive down and score a touchdown. Then the Packers get them to punt, and then they go down again, score a field goal, and then they get the ball in the second half, and they immediately go down and score a touchdown when Green Bay had to have a stop. And then like the game was basically, or it was a 3 touchdown game at that point. Yes, Green Bay holds them to, I think, punt, and then the final drive where they just wore out the clock at that point. It felt like when Detroit had to have something, they had answers for anything that Green Bay was doing defensively. Green Bay got a few stops and the game wasn't really in the balance, and it felt like Detroit was being very cautious in this one. I don't know. You're smarter than me. Where did you come down on the defensive performance on this one?
I'm kind of with you on that. The big thing was when Detroit needed to run the ball, they were able to run the ball and get whatever they wanted, basically, right? And that was a big deal to me. The tackle situation, I think, the Lions tackles are up there with some of the best tackle pairings in the league. I thought one of their weaknesses was actually their interior offensive line, and the fact that the Packers weren't able to make up for that. That is a pretty significant red flag to me. The Packers haven't been terrible at stopping the run, certainly not by Packers standards this season, but this game I think was a pretty big black eye in terms of that. I will say one of the interesting things that Detroit put on film was a lot of nub and YY sets. So nub sets are, one tight end on one side and all the wide receivers on the other side, right? And then YY is 2 tight ends, right? So basically all you need to know is the Lions were putting all their tight ends on one side and the receivers on the other, no matter if it was 2 or 1 tight end or 2 wide receivers or 3 wide receivers, right? And what that does is it especially in a single high defensive structure, it makes you kind of declare what you want to do from a pre-snap standpoint, right? Because what's going to happen is if you're in man, right, and the tight ends are over here and the wide receivers are over here, the cornerback's going to travel to the other side to be on that slot receiver, right? Or if you're going to stay in zone, the cornerback's going to stay. So I think that's one reason why Jared Goff was able to have such a high completion percentage, was because he was getting pretty good pre-snap information just based off of who was where. The other thing, too, the Packers in this game played a lot of base defense, even relative to how many tight ends the Lions were playing. The Lions were obviously playing a lot of tight ends. In that game, not only, well, I guess in part because they were up, right? So you just want to pop a football at that point, especially when the Packers are out gaining you like 150 yards or whatever it was. I think at one point it was like 200 yards offensively. But the Packers were staying in base even when the Lions were playing 3 wide receiver sets, right? So there's times when you're doing that where Jared Goff, his first thing he's looking at is Eric Wilson in the slot or is it the starting cornerback, right? And that's a pretty big tell, right? So that might have been one of those situations where it's because Green Bay was down 2 starting defensive backs, right?
Sure.
That they wanted to do that. Like the injury, like maybe they don't go into the next game with that same exact game plan or something like that. But I think it was just a perfect culmination of just one, the Lions offense being put in a good situation because, 2 drop touchdowns, a missed field goal, all the other stuff, right? A pick six. Them being able to run the ball when they needed to run the ball, and then having pretty good tells and having a good trigger man, honestly. It's not like there were a lot of opportunities for pressures in that game because Goff was getting the ball out of his hand so quickly. But I never really thought that the pressure was really affecting him. I mean, the big play was made by Aaron Mosby in this game as far as pressure goes, right? So, I know a lot of people are looking at it as like, that's weird. That'll never happen again. But I really do think that the Lions run game was the most, ass-kicking performance out of all of it, if you want to point at something.
Yeah, and I thought Montgomery looked really good. I can't believe Chicago ever kind of let him go. That's very annoying. Not that he still obviously would have been in the division, but that was such a big signing for them.
Well, Gibbs was doing well too, right? Gibbs had that 15-yard touchdown
run. Yeah.
The Packers are trying to do interesting stuff. Like they got into a bear front on that play, so they reduce Preston Smith to basically a defensive tackle position and have Quay play on the edge. And someone just does not fit the run. I mean, there's just no one for that backside C gap. I don't know if on that touchdown, Quay was supposed to cross the face of the tight end, the backside tight end there, so then Eric Stokes could then fill as the D gap guy and be in the run fit, or if Stokes was just supposed to fill in the C gap himself. But that was another one of those situations where, they're in one of those nub sets that ends up costing Green Bay. Like, they were trying to throw some stuff out, and they still weren't able to stop that Lions run game.
No.
And that's why I kind of come away when anyone is like, we outgained them 150 yards. You take away the pick six, you take away the 2 drop touchdowns, you take away the missed field goal. I'm like, all right, well, there's still some stuff that they had to do better on like a consistent basis. Like, I don't know. I do not think the Packers are consistent enough right now. I don't think there's any 3-game stretch that I'm looking at. And, they very well might have to go 4 games to do it. And I'm saying, like, yes, this is a team that can go on a title run. And that's just who they are. I mean, they might develop into that second half of the season. I mean, young guys get better. We've seen that last year. But first half of the season, I mean, I think they look way more like a bubble playoff team than they look like a true, quote unquote contender.
The only thing that gives me hope is that they haven't come close to playing what I think can be their best version of football yet. I mean, I don't even think close, so hopefully it clicks at some point and everything just kind of, clicks into place and you kind of get a little bit more closer to expectation and they can start playing that way. And all of a sudden you get a little of that rhythm and momentum going in your direction and maybe it clicks, but it's going to take that. Like, they have a lot to clean up, not only in the bye week, but for the remainder of the season. I don't think they have quite found their identity yet. Not on offense, not quite on defense. I think there's signs of little things here or there, but they've been very dependent in this first half of the season on explosive plays, both on offense and on defense, when it comes to turnovers on defense and when it comes to big plays on offense, those are good things to have. You want those and you want to be able to, get those on both sides of the ball, but they have to show a much better consistent brand of football. This was actually the opposite of that for the most part, where they moved the ball inside the 20s consistently all game, could not get the turnovers, could not get the explosive plays for the most part, and could not get the ball in the end zone when it came to the, inside the 20, which has also been an issue through the course of the year. But I don't think they've found anywhere near close to their brand of football yet.
No, we haven't even talked about penalties. I just realized I don't think either of us have set penalties, and those absolutely killed us. Again, not a consistent enough team right now.
It's the as the kids like to say, they're a very unserious team at the moment.
I've used that term. Yeah. It was like I was in the APC Slack and I was like, we're unserious right now. Like, yeah, it's just not a good game. I mean, it very much felt like, all right, just get us to the bye, get us that week of rest. Hopefully Jair comes back. Hopefully Williams comes back. Hopefully Love is fully healthy and, just crank it up from there.
It felt like a whack-a-mole of mistakes where you'd get one down and just another would pop up somewhere completely, like a bad snap, a missed field goal, a pick six, penalty on one side, a penalty on the other side, like just a drop pass, like just everything. It's just like you put out one fire or like you get like a 10-yard penalty, you get like a 20-yard play after it. And then or you get the 2 big penalties on Brian Branch. And the first thing Dobbs does is jump off sides. It's just I mean, my goodness, like it was just every single time, just the moment you gain just even a modicum of momentum in that game, just gone in a moment's instant. And there's no trend. It was somebody different other than I think Keyshawn having the 2 penalties. It was somebody different like every single time, but that is almost more concerning like that it's popping up everywhere. So everyone just, again, needs to kind of lock in, do a better job. I want to stick on the defense for just a second because another one of the very popular characters that is kind of getting discussed this week is Keyshawn Nixon. He obviously gives up the touchdown, has a holding penalty, has the unsportsmanlike to begin the game. Where are you at with Keyshawn and specifically where he's kind of been at from a defensive performance standpoint?
I mean, I'm still more worried about Stokes. I know it feels like deflecting, but I'm still more worried about Stokes if we're talking about the cornerback rotation. There was that one play super early on where Stokes just gets separated on by a tight end, which, that was another one of those nub plays, right? Where you get in an obvious situation where, are you in man, are you in zone? And he's just not sticky enough at the top of the route. Tight end comes on that end breaker. And I was just like, man, if you are not athletic enough to stick with tight ends, we have a problem at corner. Like we have a problem at corner. I was hoping when Hafley said this past week,
Valentine.
and yeah, he was like, we're going to see more Valentine this week. I was like, okay, that means he's going to rotate in with Stokes. Well, kind of. Like Jair is not going to play this week. Oh, dang. Right. So I am still hoping, we get a little bit more of an uptick on Valentine. I haven't gone and rewatched the game to like specifically look at the cornerback play. So I can't really tell you how well Valentine was doing, but Stokes in game, it was still noticeable. So, I mean, you could do whatever you want with Keyshawn. Have you seen the Greg Newsome stuff? Why are Packer fans locked in on Greg Newsome? I don't understand. Every trade deadline, every draft, there's just one dude that
everyone's locked in on.
Half of Packers fans have locked in. This is their guy.
I went back and watched Newsome a couple weeks ago because
he's 180 pounds and he can't tackle.
Yeah, he's had a really rough season. He did have a nice week at least per PFF. I didn't want to not watch his tape this week, but per PFF, he had a nice week this week. It was his best game of the season per them. I did see one play where he'd made a nice pass breakup. I just happened to see it on the red zone while I was watching it. The other thing that you have to be careful of with Newsome, or at least be aware of with Newsome, is that he has a fully guaranteed fifth-year option next year. That's like give me 1 second. I've got it right here. 13.4 million, 13.4 million fully guaranteed.
No, boo. So we hate that.
Yeah, and we do not like that at all. I did have him on my list of potential trade candidates just because people have been, clamoring for Greg Newsome. He was not on my final recommendation. Like, let me ask you this. This is the one I want to ask you. This is the one I threw out there. What if Green Bay could get Newsome for Stokes straight up because they want to get off the contract?
No, I mean, I want a better corner than that.
Yeah,
I'm hoping that it's Valentine.
So. I just don't think why are you taking on the risk of a $14 million guaranteed contract for a player who has not played well, and you have to fit in your defense. And I'm not sure that he's actually been noticeably better than Eric Stokes so far this year. I mean, you have better have been super high on him in the draft process and feel like there is some sort of fatal flaw in the way that they're using him in Cleveland, and that you're not going to use him in the same way in Green Bay and that they can unlock him somehow. I liked him very much coming out of the draft, but he has not been that guy. Here's the numbers, by the way. I knew he's got a 52.3 PFF grade. He's been thrown at 36 times, 24 completion, 66.7 completion percentage, 360 yards allowed, 3 touchdowns, no picks, 2 pass breakups, a nice little 127.1 passer rating when targeted so far. So not great.
No.
And he doesn't tackle.
Yeah. And he's the liability in the run game. So that touchdown that we just talked about, right? That Gibbs ran for, he very well might have allowed that one too. So
yeah, it's not been great.
Greg Newsome right now is 14th in yards allowed any position on NFL Pro, and he's allowed 3 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. I think 3 touchdowns might be, there's not many players who have done that in the league this year. Passer rating against him, 111.7. That is not good. Again, was just very surprised. One day my Twitter mentions just started filling up with Greg Newsome tweets, and I was just like, why him?
It was a draft darling that a lot of people wanted in Green Bay. I don't know if people still think he's related to Craig Newsome. He is not related to Craig Newsome, former Green Bay Packer. So yeah, I don't know what the exact desire is, but I've been talking about it for a couple of weeks of go watch Greg Newsome anything, and you're not going to be super impressed. He's not going to be the savior in Green Bay. Like I said, Green Bay would have to be just enamored with him coming out of the draft to the point of we know we can fix him or something. I just don't see there's no way Green Bay takes on the 14 mil guarantee, 13.7 mil guarantee, 13.4 mil. Sorry. There's no way.
That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all.
All right. Anything else we want to talk about before we talk some other possible trades that I kind of went through and dive into?
I was going to say trades. Let's talk trades.
Let's talk trades. All right. So I'm going to do some names. These are the ones that I went through. I did an episode just before coming on before recording with you on late on Monday night, excuse me. So let me know if any of these fit your fancy. I did all corners and defensive linemen, so that I don't have any other positions. And I did them all from teams that are likely sellers. So Patriots, Dolphins, Browns, Titans, Jaguars, Raiders, Giants, Cowboys, Saints, and Panthers. So I'll get your thoughts on it. All right, number 1 on my list, corner from the New England Patriots, Jonathan Jones, 4.4 million for the remainder of this year, 66.8 PFF grade so far, no contract next year. He's given up a 128.9 passer rating, but 1 penalty, 2 touchdowns, no picks, 255 yards allowed.
I'm not really into a rental corner.
You know, I'm sorry, say that again.
I'm not really into a rental corner.
Okay.
Like, Valentine can't get on the field already. So, like, that's kind of how I approach it. I know Breer said that he's probably not going to be on the market. He brought up Marco Wilson as a guy that the Patriots might end up trading.
Okay.
But that's just kind of my approach. It's like, what if you can catch and release a corner, and then next year, are they still not going to play Valentine next year? Like, I would like an answer on Valentine. I don't know if you guys can tell after weeks of this. I would like an answer on Valentine.
I'm not, again, we've been on the same page on that. I'm going to go defensive lineman. We're going to Miami. Calais Campbell, just over 1 million remaining, 38 years old, 83.4 PFF grade, 2 sacks, 13 hurries, 18 overall pressures, 79.4 run defense grade. Paying him nothing the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, depending on the price. You could talk me into him helping out as a rotational guy on the defensive interior. We've seen, they're able to get a bunch of guys in. Wyatt did not have a good game. I don't know why Wyatt was throwing fists at the end or pushing people at the end of the game when they were trying to kneel the ball out. That kind of pissed me off. I was like, you didn't do anything all game. You got your, face rammed into, and now you're going to start acting out. Like, settle down, dude. Settle down.
Maybe a veteran in there would make a little bit of a difference. We'll see. All right, we're going to stick in Miami. We're going to go to a non-rental corner. We're going to go Kendall Fuller. He'd have under 1 million remaining this year. He'd have a 1-year, $7 million contract next year, non-guaranteed. So it's basically a team option. If he plays well the rest of the year, you could keep him at 1 year, $7 million. If he doesn't, you didn't like him, you could get off of him for no remainder whatsoever. 72 PFF grade, 10 of 19 when thrown at 52.6%, 128 yards, 1 touchdowns, no picks, 4 PBUs, 91.6 passer rating, has primarily played on the outside.
Yeah, he's one I would file under. I want to watch him before I make a strong statement.
Yeah.
But at least a little interested. I've liked him in the past. I've liked what he's done in the past. I don't think that contract is a big deterrent. Those numbers, you said, 70 PFF rate. I mean, I'm sure Stokes is much worse. Well,
in his 40s or something.
Yeah, well, I don't know. PFF only grades on targeted plays. So
yeah, they're different for sure. It's not perfect. Like let's be very clear there. Stokes so far he's at a 51.1 grade so far this year. So
so he might be one where if they aren't sold on Valentine, like at least I see the vision on that one. For not only this year but also next year.
We're gonna go to Tennessee, defensive end / edge rusher Arden Key, 28 years old, 1 million left this year. You're already shaking your head no.
He's not good.
I mostly agree. 19 pressures, 4 sacks, 13 hurries on the year. Like I'm almost ready.
A lot of those might be fake too. Like Arden Key is somehow one of these guys that he gets pushed up based off of the numbers, but you watch the film and it's just
never good.
It's not there.
I've never been an Arden Key guy, going back even to college. Just never been. But he makes nothing, which is the only thing that is, and he's only 28 years old, which is
he's bad, but he's cheap. Yeah,
he's bad, but he's cheap.
I have seen him rumored out there. I know Rossini brought his name up when she talked about a couple pass rushers.
Let's go Raiders. Corner Jack Jones, former Patriot, 27 years old, makes nothing this year, $1 million deal next year. So you get 2 years. Had the pick 6 this past week, but has given up 4 touchdowns, 66.7% completion percentage, 5 PBUs, 5 penalties on the year for Jack Jones.
Yeah, he's a hothead.
Yes, he would fit in well with Jair Nixon.
Went to 3 schools, started at USC, dropped down to a community college, I believe because of an armed robbery at a Panda Express. Yes, an armed robbery at a Panda Express.
Upon, though? Is that something that's frowned upon?
So,
this was New England, by the way, and got cut in New England for nothing after being a 2nd round pick.
Yeah, this happened in 2023. 2 loaded guns, carry on baggage. This was when he was in New England. Those charges got dropped, and he had to do community service. I don't know, man.
It's not a likely Green Bay move.
Doubt. Yeah, just doubt. Very much on the doubt wagon.
All right, I got two pass rushers. We're going to go to the Saints first. Not the one that's often bantered about. I'm going to go Carl Granderson, 28 years old, 500K remaining this year, 7.73, but all guaranteed next year. Then he'd have 2 years of 12.75 million per year after that, but they're non-guaranteed. You can get off of them. No problem there. 32 pressures already this year, 5 sacks, 26 hurries, solid run defense grade.
So he's a solid player, but again, bringing in the off-field stuff. He went undrafted for a reason out of Wyoming.
Okay.
He got 6 months in prison for pleading no contest to sexual battery and unlawful contact. So, yeah, I mean that guy. I mean, he would have probably been a top 100 pick coming out of Wyoming.
Right.
Saints.
I forgot he had off-field stuff.
Yeah, again, I only know all this because I'm doing weird draft stuff in April and all that. But yeah, I mean, he was available for cheap for a reason. Yeah.
Probably not a Green Bay guy. All right. How about Jadeveon Clowney, Carolina? He's done nothing this year. 1 million this year. He'd got 10 million next year on his deal, but only 2 million of it guaranteed. So it's basically like a 1 year, $8 million option, and you're paying him basically 3 mil for this year. 32 pressure. Sorry, I was looking at Granderson. 18 pressures only this year, but had 78 last year. Has not worked out in Carolina. You're hoping, obviously, that you can unlock him and get him back to the way he was playing a year ago if you bring him in.
Yeah, that's the one where I'm like, Clowney, bring me Clowney. I would like to have my hands on Clowney. Clowney's such an interesting player because he had to learn how to win without his peak athleticism almost immediately. I mean, I think people forget he was drafted number 1 overall, and then he immediately had to have like microfracture surgery on that knee. So it obviously took him a while to kind of build all the other things around him. Last year was amazing, frankly. And
yeah, he's incredible.
This year, I mean, I'm not surprised anyone's numbers on the Carolina defense sucks. If I'm a DB on the Panthers, I'm asking for a trade loud and proud as I can.
Right,
like,
let's get there. JC Horn, 25 years old.
There's one you can sell me.
1.7 mil this year. So it's an easy contract. He's got 12.4 mil guaranteed next year. 15 of 35 when targeted, 42.9% completion percentage, 192 yards. Did give up 3 touchdowns, but 1 interception, 7 pass breakups, 5 penalties on the year so far. But here's the kicker, right? He has the 12.4 million guaranteed, contract next year. Not a big deal, but you have to think if any team gives up anything of significance for him, we're going to get something where the agent's like, he'll play out this year, but we want a long-term deal before he plays out the remainder of next year. And you probably get some sort of, you're going to have to pay him, right? Like you're going to have to pay him significantly.
That's fine with me. I mean, we're not giving up the first round pick. So it'd have to be like a second for
probably a second.
Not Joe Horn. Is it Joe
JC
Horn?
Horn.
No, JC Horn. Joe Horn is playing at Colorado. They're both the.
Is there a Joe Horn Jr.?
Yes. Joe Horn Jr. is playing receiver at Colorado for Dion. And they're both of Joe Horn Sr. Yeah, dude, you could sell me on that. Second round pick, I'll pull the trigger right now. So we found Clowney, we found him. Let's just raid the Panthers.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I don't have anyone else. That was my list. Anyone else that's been on your radar? There's obviously the Chase Young. There's the Lattimore's deal. They're not going to get. The New Orleans trades him, and their salary cap just gets nuked. So I don't think that's going to be an option. I don't think Jalen Ramsey. I think that's another one where the contract is going to be too much of a problem for both teams. There's no one else that I could really kind of come up with that made sense for like the other team to trade. Like Ojulari maybe with New York. I don't know if that's going to be something like Green Bay would actually have interest in. This was kind of my list so far.
Ojulari was another one I'm at least semi-interested in. I'm looking at pass rushers. If you guys haven't figured this out by now, I'm looking at pass rushers more than I am at corners, and I really doubt they address anything else. Third guy on my list, Zadarius Smith.
I was going to say, don't do it. Don't do it.
I know it's not going to happen.
I have a better chance of playing edge rusher for Green Bay this season than Zadarius Smith.
I think so too. I think he probably doesn't want to play for LaFleur again.
I don't think they want him to play for. I don't think anyone. Yeah. I don't think anyone's interested in that reunion whatsoever.
He would have helped this team. So
yeah, of course. And listen,
I mean, D'Amico Ryan was like actively suing the Houston Texans when they made him head coach. So at this point, I mean,
Zadarius Smith has a 1-year shelf life where he does awesome for his new team immediately. He does the first year in Green Bay was unbelievable. The second was actually fine. It was good. But then he he went to Minnesota, had that awesome year in Minnesota, and then they were like, we're good. And then he went to Cleveland, had a good year last year, and then I think they're probably like, we're good. Like if Detroit gets him, it's going to be like he's going to go out and tear it up for the remainder of this year, go out and dominate, and then they're probably at the end of the year going to be like, we don't need anything to do with this guy anymore. Like if you can get him for 8-9 games, whatever it is, or whatever the remainder of the season is, that is the best dosage of Zadarius Smith that you can probably possibly have, where he's going to probably give you everything. You're going to love him to begin with. And then by the offseason, you're going to be like, we're good. That's all we needed.
Which is fine. We only got what?
No, but it's not going to be Green Bay because they've already had that experience. I don't think Minnesota will be interested in Green Bay. I think anyone that's already experienced is like, we're good. But if
how many of those guys were actually on the team though? I mean, I guess LaFleur to be a fly on the wall for the first LaFleur Zadarius.
Is he going to come in wearing the captain's chain that he purchased for himself? It's like, is that going to be?
I don't know if it ever got made. I want to know if it ever got made.
He's still wearing
mock-ups.
I don't know.
Mock-ups. But just from a talent perspective, if I'm looking at edge rushers, Zadarius Smith and Jadeveon Clowney are the two that I would be very interested in for Green Bay. And then Aziz is the one where it's like borderline. But outside of that, like not super interesting crop of players out there available for Green Bay right now.
The Fuller Calais Campbell ones are like semi-intriguing to me.
Yeah, I did forget about Calais, just because he's an older guy.
He's a freak.
Fuller is interesting. Horn, I don't think Horn's going to be available, but I would do.
I don't think so either
for sure. If you're the Panthers, I mean, he's like the one good young player that you have. Don't get rid of Horn.
Unless he's, begging for out and is like, I'm not going to re-sign with you guys. You can have me for the one more year. And maybe they just feel like they've got to restock the draft cupboard in some capacity and like basically start fresh. But I don't know. Yeah.
Andre Dillard, Preston Smith. What do you sell him for?
I've talked about this a little bit. I did talk about that. At least Preston. I know I talked about Dillard too. With both of them, I just don't think. Well, first of all, with Preston, I'll take anything. If anyone wants to take Green Bay off of his hands, I'm probably okay with it and just be like, yeah, we'll take whatever. I'm not super concerned about it. I just don't know that anyone's going to really want to take on Preston in that contract. And I think he probably has more value to Green Bay to just play it out. And hopefully that he kind of gets back to playing anywhere near where he was even last year, than whatever 7th round pick that they'd get in return for him. But I think if some team was legitimately like, we'll give you something, like I'd honestly probably take whatever at this point.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that boat too. Especially did Green Bay give up the 6th or 7th from Malik, and then you just have
7th.
Yeah, just 7th. Have a draft pick in every round or whatever. I mean, if you want to, I guess the one value I could see of not having Preston Smith is it creates a vacuum for more snaps that then Lucas Van Ness could then fill. We've seen Aaron Mosby start to work into the rotation. At that point, if Preston's not on the field, like Brenton Cox, do something, please. Like you've been on the roster for a year and a half, just getting redshirted at this point. So I do see a little bit of value there with Dillard going out potentially. I don't know who would be like your backup left tackle at that point. I guess this is the question for me.
That's another one where like what you're at most going to get a conditional 7th or something like that, like at absolute most. And like, if you have real serious desire to like make a push into the playoffs, like I'll take the offensive line depth. You cannot find it in free agency. Like if all of a sudden guys start going down, you can't find even another Andre Dillard that's out there, which is your problem. So unless you're bringing Bakhtiari back at some point, and I don't see that happening. So yeah, I just can't see a world. And like you have Telfort, right? And Telfort's played left and right, but we nobody I don't think knows anything about Telfort. Even like the Packers would have to be like, all right, we don't know exactly what we're getting into here if he has to actually play legitimate snaps.
Glover, you don't want Glover playing.
No, Glover's a complete redshirt guy. He's a complete absolute redshirt. And even Jacob Monk, you don't know what you're getting there. Even if you felt like you could kick out Jordan Morgan or Jenkins or one of those guys, you don't know what you're going to get with Monk on the inside. So I don't know. To me, the off chance that you need to use them. Now, if some team calls like offering like a 5th or something, 4th, 5th, like I'm like, yeah, I probably just can't turn that down, but there's just no way anyone's interested in doing that.
Yeah. I assume Dillard, like he might be like a 6th for 7th type of pick
at
swap
best
thing.
Yeah.
So That might be the most value that you can get out of him. But Preston, I'm at this point. I mean, Preston's. I don't know if people have been paying attention to the snap counts. His numbers just keep dropping.
No, he's
Like
not playing.
He's not even playing like 40% of the snaps right now. So
The
if you
issue
want
is
to
there's
move up
not anyone that's like that. I'm super excited about taking his snaps at the moment. Like Enigbare's hasn't. I
if
don't
it's
know.
not LVM, then we have problems.
We do have problems. Like
Yeah, well,
we do have problems like that.
enter Clowney.
Yeah.
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 So yeah, I mean that's. Remember when I was made fun of in the summer for bringing up the pass rush? Everyone's like, oh,
I don't remember
Green
you
Bay.
getting made fun of for corner for the or pass rush for the record. I remember you
Corner
getting made fun
got
of for
blasted
corner.
for at the draft. The draft time, people were furious.
That I
got
remember. I
turned
don't
into
remember
the
the pass rush
embodiment.
thing.
I got
But
turned into
if
the
you did
human
legitimately
embodiment
bring up,
of not
oh
taking
no,
the Iowa
I take it
corner.
back. I take it back. I remember us very early talking on about how Green Bay's players don't exactly fit the scheme of
Yeah.
pass rushers. I very, very much remember that conversation. You've been proven very, very right in that regard. Yes.
It's the cover 3 thing, man. Like, or I guess it cover 3 and cover 1, single high stuff, but you have to win with pass rushers. You have to. And we're just not good enough at it right now. So
Yeah.
I'm genuinely hoping that they're a little at least active in the edge rusher market.
I think they'll
Apparently
be
this draft
calling.
class is going to be good there, but I would like them to at least be in the Clowney conversation.
I think they'll be calling. I don't know that they actually do it. I think I've put it at like 25%, and that's probably high that they actually do something.
Because pass rushers, even like pass rusher is the one situation where I think if you get better there, it helps everything around it, right? And that's kind of what justifies, even if it's a 1-year rental type of situation. So that's the one where I'm like, yeah, just get a guy for half a season, and then I think it's going to pay dividends. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Maybe we're sellers. Who knows?
Yeah, if it is, it's going to be nothing noteworthy. It would be like Preston for again a cup of coffee, and it would be to open up, I guess, for either somebody that you'd be acquiring, or they feel like Cox and Mosby are ready to get more snaps or something. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
All right. Other final thoughts before we get out of here?
That's pretty much it. How excited are you to not see political ads during football games anymore?
Not just the political ads. The text messages are out of damn control. To not have the text message, the calls, like I was trying to record an episode and I have it connected to my computer and I like had to keep restarting because I like got phone call after phone call after phone call. So the phone calls, the radio ads, the like all of it, just absolutely all of it. I'm so ready for it to just be that part of it to be done. Obviously for like I'm in Wisconsin, so I'm in,
Mhm.
I'm not quite Pennsylvania, but I'm in very strong battleground state and it is an absolute nightmare. My mailbox every day is like every day is a solid 8 to 10 flyers thick with new little like pamphlets of everything. There's a new thing on my door handle every single day. It is I'm ready for all of it to be done, Justice.
Yeah. Addie, my girlfriend, so she doesn't work in the house. I obviously work in the house. Um, she came upstairs and was like, our little box in our apartment was so full that they started putting, the letters and stuff on top of it. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, we just checked it this weekend. She's like, it was jam packed. I was like, oh my God. Yeah, I have my YouTube TV set to Wisconsin, which by the way, if you guys don't know how to do that, get the fixed location guard uh, plug in on Chrome. Pro tip if you don't want to pay for Sunday ticket. That's what I do. So yeah, every ad that I get is Wisconsin politicians. It's getting too much. I was showing text yesterday when we were recording too, because everyone says, you go through school and stuff, and people are like, ranked choice voting seems to make the most sense, right? Where you have your whole list of candidates, and you're like, I want this one first, and then if that person's not available, then we can go to number 2 and all that stuff. And that sounds great until you're voting in Portland, where you have to vote for city commissioner and mayor, and there's 25 candidates for each one. So now I have to read up on 50 different candidates before I can
Do you have
vote
to
on
rank
just
them?
2 things. You rank them 1 through 6, but I have to know who the 6 are, Andy.
I've never heard of this. I've never heard
So
of
I
this
have to
before
rank.
ever.
I have to rank through. Yeah, I was pro ranked choice, and then you gave me 25 options that I have to read on. And now I'm like, all right, look, either get it back to the 2 in the independent or give me at least fewer options.
Yeah, I feel like if like at least narrow it to the 6, then if you can only vote for 6, like narrow it to 6 before you get to that point. Like there's got to be you get a tournament going, get a bracket,
That's what I'm saying.
That's what you should do. That's what you need to do is you need to get the 50 candidates and get them in an NCAA style bracket and then just read one by one and go like, all right, here's what I want. And then get to your at least final 4 and then or Elite 8 and figure it out from there.
25 candidates. I'll show you off air because I haven't voted on that part because I legitimately got fatigued and I was like, this is going to be like an hour and a half of work. Just
it's a good thing it's a bye week this week because you're going to spend your entire research time just looking at 50 candidates.
Well, I'm going to go on vacation on Friday, so hopefully nothing breaks over this weekend because I won't be able to stay. I'll be in the woods, so I got that working for me.
There you go. Well, I'm jealous of that. Justis, you're the absolute best. Yes, I'm very excited for it all to be done, hopefully here in the very near future. Where can we find all of your incredible work, of course?
AcmePackingCompany.com. If you want those weird Luke Musgrave on-off stats for the backup tight end percentages, that's where you'll find it. I just wrote that up. So
there is nothing more that we want as a fan base. I guarantee you that. That's exactly why you were here. Go follow him at JUMOSQ. You can find me at Andy Herman NFL. You can find the podcast at Pack-A-Day Podcast. That's going to do it for Justis and I today. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.